You're listening to Trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
Every Friday morning, common theme. Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Trailblazers.fm. My name is Stephen A. Hart. If this is your first time hanging with us, welcome. Trailblazers.fm is a podcast, a platform that I launched over 5 years ago. And it's one where we explore stories of amazing Black entrepreneurs and leaders. We have an archive now of over 250 amazing professionals between our podcast and these live streams that we host each and every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Today, I am welcoming back a return guest of Trailblazers.fm, Mr. Chazz Scott. Chazz, good morning, my brother.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you this morning?
I am great, man. I am blessed. I am playing, I'm in an active dad role. Our kids are both back, both on summer break as of this week. And so my wife, took our daughter off to an appointment early this morning, and I'm here with a side eye to the door, watching for my little guy.
I think a lot of people have become accustomed to that now in terms of the whole COVID-19 telework from home. Kids in the other room, work in the other. So it's an interesting balance there.
Yes. Good morning to our Blaze Nation community. Rocking with us wherever you are. We are live right now on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Wherever you're joining us from this morning, good morning. Chazz, tell the world, tell the Blaze Nation community a little bit, for those who have not yet heard an episode of Chazz Scott, tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So I think about 5 or 6 years ago, started really getting into the self-development movement, self-esteem, reading a lot of books in the self-help space, and read this one book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. Totally transformed my life. It gave me a framework on how to just live a better life and make life work for yourself. And that's what I needed at the time when I was down in Hampton University studying computer science. And at that point in time, I decided to use that knowledge and give that knowledge to youth. So I started a nonprofit called Positively Caviar, which is a grassroots nonprofit based in the Baltimore and DC areas that help kids with mental wellness and providing these really fun, creative, but also very exciting mental wellness self-development workshops. How to overcome negative self-talk, how to give kids the knowledge and power to understand how their mind works as it relates to thoughts, actions, habits, character, and destiny. And also just giving them the strategies to just understand how to make life work for them as it relates to their goals and their habits. A lot of that stuff that we're not taught in school, but that we all need to have in order to have a successful and fulfilling, fun life.
Yeah.
So beyond that, recently, about a year and a half ago, I recently started coaching entrepreneurs under my LLC Supermentum to help entrepreneurs how to effectively use their minds to obtain greater levels of confidence, better focus, concentration. There's so much science out there as it relates to, exercise, what meditation can do. And all of that obviously helps your mental wellness, but it also increases your creativity, your performance, and your concentration. And a lot of this knowledge is out here, but people don't actively go out and search for it. I give those knowledge and tools and strategies to entrepreneurs and business leaders so they can become the best person that they intend to be in their professional as well as their personal lives.
I love it, Chazz. Listen, yeah, we kind of deviated from our traditional track. I know that, and I don't know if this is something public to the world. I don't know how private you are, but I know that you recently got engaged, and I say recently, in the recent last couple months, right? Congratulations. Since last we've spoken to you, lots has changed in your life. Tell us something that you're real grateful for right now, an unexpected blessing that you're most grateful for right now.
That's every morning I wake up, that's one of the key things I always do is gratitude. Because you just talked about the wedding and the marriage coming up. Now that I'm engaged, I'm going to go directly to my woman. Kiara Jones, I don't know if she's out there listening currently, but when you have somebody, a significant other that continues to be there for you, emotionally, as well as, just always giving you the encouragement, but also giving you the necessary tools and knowledge for yourself to maybe make modifications, right? She gives it to me straight. I'm very grateful for somebody like that next to me. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not constantly reminding myself of how grateful I am and how thankful I am. Because, even few and far between with significant others, even friends, to have somebody right next to you that you can connect with, that you can truly believe that, they have the best intentions for you, is something that it should not be taken lightly. So that is definitely what I'm grateful for every single day.
100%, man. I love it. Chazz, I wish I could flip the cover of my laptop case, because I have my caviar sticker proud on my laptop. Chazz is somebody that I connected with a couple years back. Man, I feel like you were initially on the podcast back in 2018.
Yep.
Right. In the fall, in August, September timeframe. And I'm watching you, just grow as an amazing brother. I have adopted you as a little brother. And you are exactly what you just shared with our Blazing Nation. You are constantly out there fueling, as my brother Sean Dove, who's rocking with us this morning, loves to talk about the mission fuel, right? You're constantly pouring out that mission fuel. And I just want to acknowledge you for that, because you're doing important work, especially in our youth. In the last year, I've been very vocal about my own mental health, mental strength, walk. And I love when, we have these conversations. Because in this season right now, I know you've always been one to lean into our youth, which I think is really important. But I think back to even my own childhood. I'm a product of a divorced home. Both my parents are still, very actively a part of my life. And even at that time, were just the same. But I can think of dealing with mental struggles going back to childhood. What fueled you to kind of lean into kids first?
Man, I think it goes back to kind of what you're talking about in terms of knowing that progression in life, and say, man, if I had the tools and knowledge that I had right now, and knowing myself a little bit more, I could have had a completely different trajectory. I think, with kids, and the science that I've researched is their brains are still developing. So if you give them some like a tool that they can use,
Yeah.
Their brains are wired to take information in very, very quickly. They always talk about, how long it takes to instill a habit, how long it takes to change maybe a limited belief. For kids, their brains are still developing. They're sucking up so much information, and it's very, very important that you give them information to support themselves, to engage and help them understand what self-esteem is, to give them new tools and strategies to overcome adversity. Nobody's taught this stuff. You kind of learn, you kind of get hit in the head a couple of times, and you're like, wait a minute, I need to do something about how I feel inside as it relates to what I'm going through, instead of just pushing through. And, we see kids like light up, and it's like this inspiration, and they're looking for people that look just like us to come into these communities and to have role models and to just give them a different understanding of how life works and how life can work for you. It's just so important that, we go back into these communities and give them a different perspective on, how to live a better life and understand how their mind and body works.
Yeah. Representation is so very important in the Black community. At all the class levels. I am, as I listen to you, I'm thinking of even in my own experience right now. I'm raising a almost 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. My daughter at 11 is a sponge, a curious sponge, deep, right? Like if she starts asking why, there are about 5 or 6 levels that will follow that initial why, right? So why?
Right.
And can also be very anxious and gets on herself, right? A couple weeks ago, she was very wound up about having to apply. She was offered to apply for a scholarship and got in her own mind, right? Very much capable of it. So was offered the opportunity, but, still lacks that the mindset, the confidence to say, I am enough. I can do this. All right. But, went out, managed to talk her into it and, build up that confidence, if you will. And she did it. And she actually was awarded the scholarship, which was pretty dope to see, that the reward of taking that shot. Right. Switching gears and talking about this, because while we're talking about kids, while you've kind of built this foundation around positive thinking, kind of serving children, what made you actually make that shift to saying, you know what, us grown-ups need this love too? Was it something fueled from parents to the kids? Was it something completely different? Like, what made you say, you know what, I could also serve entrepreneurs? And why entrepreneurs? Why not leaders?
So it is both entrepreneurs, leaders. But when we started doing these workshops, parents, and we set up booths at different events, and individuals, we would describe to them what we would do in these workshops. And everybody that we talked to that weren't part of our age group, ages between 11 and 18, they were interested. And they were like, man, I need some of this stuff in my life. I'm going through something that I believe that I need help with, or I'm trying to improve my mental wellness, or I'm trying to improve my performance or my creativity, or whatever the case may be. And I started to realize that this is not only something that youth need to ultimately change their trajectory and where they're going, but we need to constantly go back to and remind ourselves. And once I started, as an entrepreneur, and that's why I specifically said to entrepreneurs, I also have a full-time job, manage a nonprofit, as well as, coaching, in the LLC and doing workshops and webinars. I started to realize there are a lot of different facets and hats that we all wear in our lives. But one of the things that we have to continue to do is on the forefront is manage our internal being, manage our internal mental wellness, and manage who we are so that, when we fill up our cup, it overflows into everybody else.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure you've been around people where, they don't necessarily have the confidence or self-esteem, or, they're always negative and it's pouring over into others. It's really, really important that one becomes aware of those emotions, figures out what to do with them so they're not affecting everybody else that's around them. And which also contributes to, your relationships as well as your performance at work, right? Everything is integrated. And if you don't focus on yourself and your needs first, guess what else happens everywhere else in your life? It's a constant reflection. And I can't remember the quote, but one of the things that I always tell people, especially when I do my webinars with entrepreneurs, is your internal self and what you believe about yourself is always a reflection of your external image. So it's really, really important. And this is one of my favorite books by, it's called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. I would encourage all of you to go read that book. But he was a plastic surgeon. And he talked about how, he would, go in for these surgeries and make these changes on their faces or wherever the case may be that they didn't necessarily like about themselves. And after the surgeries, one of the things that he started to realize is there would be a change or a switch in somebody's personality. And he pondered and said, there are two different images of how one perceives themselves. There's the internal self-image of who I believe about myself, and then also that outward image that other people see. And when people really get in tune with who they are, what they want, and where they're going, and know within their own mind, that's when their external reality begins to change. But if we don't tap in and ask those questions of who am I, where am I going, what do I want, then we're kind of just going like this. And there's no discipline, there's no forward steam, and we don't know what we want out of life. So helping people and entrepreneurs get centered on who they are and where they're going with goal setting and habits, it integrates to every part of your life.
Yeah, 100%. Even in my branding course, I'm big on that, right? With my clients, I'm big on getting very clear about where you're directing your life. What's your long-term vision? What's the purpose and meaning behind what the work that you're doing? I love that you also touched on the fact that you have a full-time job, as do I, right? We have our LLC on the side. We're doing all these different things. How do you balance, creating separation between the two, right? And was this fueled by realizing, hey, my day job in the world of cyber will not fulfill these other, boxes that I want to check in terms of purpose and meaning and big goals that I have? Yeah.
So as it relates to kind of how I manage everything, I have to use my calendar. My iPhone, MacBook, everybody has a calendar on their phone, whether you have an Android or anything, but I manage everything through my calendar. Me and my fiance have this thing where if it's not on your calendar, then it's not getting
doesn't exist.
It's not getting done.
Wait till y'all have kids. That calendar is real. I tell you what.
It is not getting done unless it's on the calendar. So every time, even with the wedding planners that we're trying to find, Pierre's like, Chazz, we have a meeting at 1:00. Okay, is it on the calendar? All right, send it to me, please. So we know that it's scheduled and nothing will get in its way.
Listen, Chazz, if the kids' pickup ain't on the calendar, they might be stuck at school.
And I think it's a simple tool, but people don't use it often enough. If you put it on your calendar and you say, hey, at this time between this hour and hour, between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., I'm going to get this done. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I started to find when you're wearing multiple different hats, and it can be really hard, you start to feel like you can do everything all at once, all at one time. It's not the case.
Prioritize, yeah.
You have to prioritize. And multitasking, in a sense, is a myth. Because what you want to do is make sure that you're bringing your full self to your conversation, maybe a meeting at work, maybe the work that you're doing, maybe a project that you're doing, or maybe you're writing a book. You want to bring your full self.
Is that a myth though? Like, I mean, can you bring your full self to a project or I mean, like, especially now, right? I'm having this conversation with you and I'm very focused on you, but in my mental space, I'm watching the light in this doorway for this kid and and in our day lives, right? Like, we are working on a job and we are actively working on a project and we're actively putting as much energy in, but many of us are working from a kitchen table with a million other things happening around us.
Yep. So 100%, especially at home, it's really hard, but you have to become aware. So a lot of people aren't even aware of how many times they pick up their phone each and every day. They have no idea how much time that they spend on their phones scrolling on Instagram and, wasting hours where they could have been spent somewhere else. Now, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. The problem is not becoming aware that you're doing it. So, Stephen, to your point, you have mental awareness. You're focused here, but at the same time, that, maybe your child needs you, or, you're looking out the door and stuff like that. I think that's okay. What's not okay is allowing your thoughts to drift towards other things when you need to focus on other things. So that comes with limiting distractions. You have to eliminate those. And I always put my phone on Do Not Disturb currently, because I know that if I look over here, I'm not focused on this conversation to bring value to the individuals that are listening.
Right.
And it's very, very important. I mean, I think about even when I'm with my friends, when I'm out with them and they're constantly picking up their phone, like, how does it make you feel when you're talking to somebody and you're expressing your value, your ideas, or how you feel, and they sit here texting in front of your face, right? It's like this whole thing about we're not present anymore because there's so many different notifications and distractions that limit, who you bring to the table in your relationships, but also at work. So it's all becoming about having awareness to understand what are you presently focused on and what's your end goal.
And even to that point, Chazz, I'm thinking even for yourself, right? Even for your own time that you need to have. So perfect use case, I'm very actively, and everybody who follows me on Instagram tends to see me taking pictures on a walk. I walk the dog at least 3 times a day. Really, I walk the dog and then the dog's walking me because it's my self-care time. But I could get caught up, right, in this time that I'm trying to give my brain margin from the tech, and I end up walking 1.5 miles and I'm looking at the phone and I've achieved nothing, right? So it's also kind of having that space to commit time for yourself, to be like, you know what, maybe I need to go for a walk, and the second I get out the door, I put the phone in a pocket somewhere, or just leave the phone altogether, right? And whether that's that for you, that's a walk, or it's something else that you're doing to take care of you, you also need to allot that time. I found that's a serious thing for me, like where I'm staring at the phone at 11 o'clock at night, scrolling through TikTok instead of giving my brain something, solid to go to sleep to.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, could we speak about, and the whole idea of this conversation, and listen, Chazz and I could talk straight till like 10 o'clock and and just go off tangent in 10 ways. But Chazz, let me maybe recalibrate here for a second. I wanted us to talk about increasing confidence, right? Because we're all dealing with different challenges, whether personally or professionally right now. And when I was looking at this, I know you speak of the habits and all the strategies and the things you touched on earlier. But like right now, newsfeed, I've been watching so many articles as well as so many tweets in the last 2 weeks about Black men and women saying, hey, I quit my job. Right. And I know a lot of that's fueled by a lot of what we're hearing right now, where especially for women in general, 2.5 men to every woman is returning to the office, returning to the workplace. There are a lot of women right now who are the breadwinner, the provider, the caretaker in their households, and they're not in a present set where they can say, hey, I can go back into the office. And a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm quitting my job. And it's almost like people are looking at it as a switch. They say, hey, I can switch employee to full-time entrepreneur, and it's scary, right? Yeah. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people who are dealing with these kind of challenges, get to the other side, and they're going to freak out, right? Now, people who have already done that, that's maybe a different conversation for another day. But I would love for us to talk about how we handle these challenges, right? How can we develop habits and a mindset towards saying, hey, you know what? We have different personal and professional challenges, but there's maybe other ways that we can kind of handle our mindset to cope and to work through some of this. Could you maybe talk to us about, how we increase our confidence and how we develop better habits?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you've touched on is really, really important is really our habits are really who we are. The daily things that we do make us who we are. And, during COVID and the pandemic, a lot of us had to alter our habits, which caused us to alter, our comfortability. And then back to, hey, now we have to return back into work. So we also have to, make adjustments. Now, we are very adaptable as human beings. But in the 21st century, always on daily lifestyle, we become very, very comfortable very, very quickly. So part of that is ensuring that you become aware of the type of habits that you have that support you versus those that may not support you. And this includes your confidence and self-esteem. I'm very, very cautious on the amount of time that I spend scrolling on my phone. Very, very cautious of the type of news that I read. Obviously, I need news to inform myself. I'm very, very cautious of the type of people that I expose myself to, because all of these inputs are having an effect on your internal self. And it's really, really important. And I like to say, you have to guard your mind. Understand who supports you, what information supports you. Figure out what are the things that are in my space that actually support where I'm going. The problem with that is some people don't know where they're going. And that's okay for a little bit. But, in the Bible, it always talks about how, right? If you don't have a future vision for yourself, then the people perish. It's really important that individuals know where they're going so they can find habits to support their end goal. So when people say, you know what, screw this job, they're making me come back into work, I'm going to be a full-time entrepreneur. Me and you both know how hard that is. And I would recommend for anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur full-time that they take the necessary steps to do so, ensuring that revenue is coming in to support the current lifestyle, those things. You take those measures. When you jump towards that shift or that you jump off the ship into full-time your entrepreneurial pursuits, your habits are going to change. Your sleep style is going to change. All of that is going to change no matter, what you do, because your daily life is different. And it's very, very important that you have a good vision or understanding of where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you might end up somewhere else. So it's very, very important that one maintains a future vision of themselves, but also says, maybe I shouldn't be scrolling on Instagram right now. Maybe I should, be doing my business plan. Or maybe I need to be limiting some of the distractions that I have right now because I know that I need to get this done for tomorrow. I think a lot of us don't ask ourselves the question of what do I need to limit? What do I need more of? And what do I need to do to get me to my desired location or outcome? And that's what a future vision or a future goal helps you to do. Now, I love the science. I have to talk about this.
Absolutely.
Right? So the brain needs clarity. Why is that? What sits just behind the forehead is your prefrontal cortex. It's your I can, I will, I must. This is your conscious mind. This is who you are right now. As I'm speaking, I'm using a lot of my prefrontal cortex. All right. Your prefrontal cortex loves clarity. Clarity is your superpower if you know where you're going. All right. Now, there's another part of the brain called the amygdala. Your amygdala is all of your emotions and your thoughts. Everything that happens in your external experience has an emotion attached to it. And your amygdala helps do that. Now, this is what I talk about in my webinars and my workshops is now there's a sweet spot. So when you say, I want to have $1 million in revenue, or I want this job over here, or I have this goal or this future vision for who I want to become, it's very, very important that you have clarity on what that goal is, because your prefrontal cortex is looking for that clarity to help guide you. Now, on top of that, your amygdala, which is strong emotion, if you have strong emotion and desire matched with clarity, I call this the sweet spot, the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, clarity and strong emotion. It works itself in a fashion to help guide you towards your goals and your outcomes. So this is the analogy that I always use. If I wanted to drive from Washington, D.C. to California, Los Angeles, right? But I didn't know where I was going. I had no map. I had no GPS. Well, how do you expect to get there? You're not going to get there.
Or it's going to take a real long time.
And this goes back to the quote that I just said. You're going to start driving. Oh, I think I know where I'm going. I think I know where I'm going. And you might end up somewhere else, but I guarantee you won't end up in Los Angeles, California. Your brain is a GPS, and you need to use it effectively to help you obtain your desires. So this is what I tell people to do. Write down what you want. Write it down. There's something very, very strange about writing your goals down. And people are like, I don't know how to write a goal. I don't know. I don't have a future vision for myself. You write goals down every single day. When you wake up in the morning, I mean, these are unconscious goals now, is I have to eat. I feel like I have to work out, right? These are some unconscious goals. There are other conscious goals that you have. Going to the grocery store and writing that checkoff list of the things that you need. right? Because you need to figure out what you need at the store so you can find efficiencies so you can get out the grocery store very, very quickly. Otherwise, you walk into the grocery store, oh, I don't know what I need for this week. The wife told me to get something. The kids need something to eat. You're spinning around in your head in the aisles, lost and losing time. That's how life works when you don't have a future vision or goal for yourself.
I love this.
Right? So that's what I always love to tell people. And I had a tough time when I started doing a lot of research on the mind and the brain of how this works. I said to myself, wait a minute. I need to write down some goals. I need to start doing this. And, over the past couple of years, I started to do this, and it's really, really amazing how this works. And people do vision boards, and people, set their goals for their New Year's resolution. And, if you constantly stick to something, your brain will work itself in a fashion to help get you there. It'll start recognizing things to help guide you to the future vision or goal that you have for yourself. But if you don't know what you want, your brain won't help you to get you there. So you're spinning like this. So that's why I always like to tell people.
I am loving it. Listen, you have touched on so much that I preach on every day. And I'm big on what I call big, hairy, audacious goals, right? I'm big on getting clear on what the long-term vision is for my life, for your life, and to what Chazz just said. I always say to my students, look, you can't edit the idea in your head. You have to get it out your head and down on paper, right? So grab your favorite note-taking app, grab a journal and a pen. If you're more traditional, sit down and give thought to what is it that you would have loved for your life to accomplish over the long term. And get clear on, what are those things that you love doing, that you are good at, that could give you compensation and that the world needs, right? And start putting that down on paper. Start getting clear on those goals. In the long term, this is the thing you want to accomplish 10 years out from now, 20 years out from now, 30 years out from now. Now you can begin to reverse engineer. Right, Chazz? Now we can begin to say, hey, what needs to happen in the next 3 years? Back in 2016, when I just started a podcast, I said, I want to get on stage and talk to thousands of people. I'd spent 7 years working in my house, original work from home, right? Not seeing nobody, trading the markets all day. I'd gotten away from socializing. I was the OG of pandemic living, right? Just in my house. I got back in front of an audience of my youth ministry, in front of 100 kids. I'd freak out, crackle voice the whole way through.
Right.
And here I was saying, hey, I want to overcome this. I want to get back on stage. I want to talk to a crowd of 10,000 people. I'm still on this journey. But it started with me saying in 2016, on June 26th of 2016, saying by 2026, I'm going to speak to 10,000 people. And I had to your point, kind of get clear on that, pitch to different organizations and say, hey, I want to get on your stage. And I got to Podcast Movement 2017. Got on a stage in front of 150 people. Absolutely freaked out.
Right.
To the point where a friend had to walk me outside and pray with me before I got and walked on the stage, delivered a talk. And in another month and a half, it would be 4 years of me speaking at Podcast Movement on their stages. I'm now talking to, more than 1,000 people. Right. But you have to get clear. Chazz just talked about this. You have to get clear on what is that vision. Where are you going? What's your LA? In Chazz's thing, right? We are in the DMV. We're in the DC metro area, and we're trying to get cross country. What's going to get you to that destination? You have to get clear on where you're going so you can determine the tasks, the actions, the people that you need to align yourself with, the habits you need to start employing. Turn off the TV, put the cell phone down, start working on your goals, right? In order to get there.
Exactly. And Stephen, I love that, you brought up an example, because those are the things that really get your mind working. You say, you know what? A couple years back, this is what I thought I was going to do, and then I did it. Oh my goodness, look at the satisfaction there. And if I did it in the past, I can do it again. And it's so important that people have that future vision for themselves. I mean, even when I do speaking engagements, even before this podcast today on LinkedIn Live here, I always think to myself right before this, how do I want to show up today? What type of value do I want to bring to the individuals that are listening in today? I visualize in my mind when I do meditation how, I'm going to speak, what type of impact I want to have. And, imagination and daydreaming, some people think daydreaming is a bad thing. Daydreaming can be a bad thing, but you have to focus in on, the future vision that you have for yourself. And kind of to what you did in terms of saying, hey, I want to speak out in front of thousands of people. You had that clarity, you had that emotion, the brain sweet spot. It loves it. It'll help you get you there. There's another part of the brain. I always talk about the science. I gotta tell people how this stuff works.
I love it.
That's called the RAS, the reticular activating system. Sits just above your brainstem here, and it helps in your awareness, right? I'll give you one example. You may be looking for a new car that you want. And you know what? I think I want a Tesla, or I think I want a Camry LE or something. I don't know, a new car. And, you're looking for one. And now that you've, been looking for this car, you start to see it on the road everywhere now, right? Now, the interesting part about this is that car has always been in your external reality. You define the clarity on what it is that you wanted or you desired. Now your perception widens, and your RAS it sits right above your brainstem, is opening that perception to help guide you to the very desires that you want.
Wow.
This happens every single day of your life. I just bought new running shoes the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I think they're called Hoka's. I had never heard of this company before. I'm a long distance runner, so I needed new running shoes. Never heard of this company before. I'd never even seen this shoe before. I bought these shoes randomly at the mall a couple weeks ago. Next thing you know, everywhere I go, I see these shoes. And I study this stuff on every single day, and I'm amazed every time I see it in my own life.
Yeah.
You have to get clear on what it is that you want, so your brain will help guide you to the particular people, to the particular circumstances, to the things that you need to your location. All of these things are part of who you are. You just need to figure out and understand that this is within you, and then use it effectively.
Mm-hmm. And I can't express enough how much confidence and that having that clarity provides. I shared a positive example of the speaking. I could also share an example, Chazz, of having having clarity on that same day in 2016, saying, "Hey, I want to interview 1,000 Black entrepreneurs and leaders," right? And for 205 consecutive weeks, we're rolling, right? For 4 years, we're rolling. Monday morning, 5 a.m., cranking out those episodes. And I hit that wall January 2020, right? And I'm like, I can't go no more. Right. It was a life circumstance. And my dad got ill, right? My dad had a stroke. And I had to pause. I had to hit pause, hit the stop button, and walk away, right? For a season. I thought it was for a few weeks. Then the pandemic hit. Then my wife gets sick. Then the kids are home. Yeah, that. And it was midsummer last year that I'm plopped in the couch for months on end in silence. And I'm able to look back at the same goals that I had written down. And I'm like, is this still the pursuit? Is this still what we want to achieve? And can we reset, right, to get there? Now, I still have a lot happening from what, played itself out last year. So I'm like, the podcast is too much right now. But could we shift? I talked about this last week. I didn't quit. I shifted. I shifted to live streaming, and we're still in pursuit of the goal. Right? So I'm not telling anybody listening to this that it's, write down the goals and life won't get in the way. Right? You're going to have the obstacle. You're going to get slapped upside the head. Right? But having that clarity also informs you. It helps to inform you when you get into these seasons, to these noisy periods. Like, hey, you know what? All this is happening right now. Where am I trying to go? In our map analogy, we had an accident on the road on the trip. Can we detour? Is there another way to get around this so we can still get to LA? And so that's another reason why, I think what we're talking about and having this clarity and having this vision is so very important, and provides that confidence that you can still get it done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this is Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, where he says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Earl Nightingale,
excuse me. So many authors in my head.
Yes. I love that definition, by the way.
Success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. It's not goals are really important, but what really brings you satisfaction and happiness is the journey along the way of knowing that you're progressing towards something that you desire and you're worthy of. And, to live a successful and full life, you have to set your sights on something. And as you mentioned, there will be adversities. There will be ways that you have to adapt, but human beings are extremely adaptable. It is amazing how adaptable we are if we know where we're going. But it's really, really important that you have the awareness to say, okay, I'm not where I am right now, but I know where I'm headed. I see a little bump in the road, but I'm going to go around it and keep going. And clarity is your superpower. That's one of the things that Tony Robbins would always say in his speeches. So it's pretty interesting. And Stephen, I think you find this a lot. When you start setting goals, you're like, man, I got that one done. I got that one. I'm moving along. I'm progressing somewhere. The dopamine hit. You're feeling good about yourself. Now you feel like you're headed towards somewhere in your life. I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily have the awareness or know where they're going, and there's no progression. Mm-hmm. In order to have progression, in order to have fulfillment and happiness, you have to know where you're going first. So it's really important that you have that future goal or that future vision. So
absolutely. Chazz, we could keep talking. What are you reading right now, man? I know you're always into stuff, and as everyone has heard right now, Chazz is into that stuff that has that data and that support behind it, which I love. The science, Mr. Cyberman. I love it. Is there any books that you're reading right now or you've read? I know you've mentioned a couple through the conversation that you think we would be good for us to maybe add to our reading queue.
Absolutely. So currently, what am I reading right now? I just finished up a book. Matter of fact, it's behind me. What Well, there's a couple that I'll recommend. I'll just say that. Think and Grow Rich, obviously, a great book.
Amazing.
Really get centered on who you are, where you're going, the principles of achievement. And another one that I would suggest, especially for those that, are looking for strength and confidence, is it's called Ascend. I think it's by Paul Schwartz. And Paul Schwartz, I believe he did some work back in the 1990s and early 2000s. But what he says is humans have the desire to ascend to their greatest potential. But there'll always be adversities. But those individuals that know how to battle those adversities and have those strategies to overcome are those that win and have fulfillment and success. And I love that book because it's not necessarily the talent, it's not necessarily the genius, it's not necessarily the money that gets you to a successful life. It's just knowing within yourself of who you are, where you're going, and knowing that you can overcome. Mm-hmm. And you build up that bounce back muscle and resilience to continue to push. And then, like I said, one of my favorite books of all time and really got me on the self-development space is The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. So those are some of the books that I would suggest at this point in time. Oh, and the last one, Resilient by Dr. Rick Hanson. That one really dives into really how powerful we are. We really are powerful human beings. Yeah. And understanding how your brain works so you can, obtain more creativity, but also boost your resilience. To continue to ascend. We all have the desire to, obtain our highest potential. It's just knowing where we're going and then having the ability to bounce back during difficulties.
I love it. Chazz Scott, always a pleasure to chat with you, my brother. What's one action that we can take this week that's going to help us to blaze our trail?
Wake up 1 hour earlier.
Woo!
And I'm not saying you have to wake up at 5 a.m. What I'm saying is wake up at least 1 hour before your first start of the day. The job
commitment,
and focus and center in on who you are and where you're going. This can be meditation. It can be prayer. Get in some physical fitness, and also take some time to read a book. Every morning I do at least some aerobic exercise, whether it's running or lifting or on the bike, and read as well as meditate for at least 20 minutes, because this saves me and also grounds me on who I am. No matter what happened yesterday, no matter what happens tomorrow, I know I'm in this present moment to show up as my best self right here, right now. And I strongly encourage individuals to find those habits in the morning, because if you set your day up for success, you will have a successful day. Win the morning and you will win the day.
Love it. Listen, if you guys have enjoyed the content that Chazz has shared this morning, so many gems, so much data behind some of what we've shared. I love that, Chazz. Go ahead, hit that love button, hit that like button, share this episode up with somebody who needs to hear this conversation and this mission fuel, this wisdom that Chazz shared. Chazz, thank you as always. Always welcome back on trailblazers.fm, my brother. Blazer Nation, go out this weekend. Process some of what Chazz shared and figure out what can you put into application. Put one thing that he shared today into application this weekend. Grab a pad and a pen and start thinking of what that destination is for you. And, what are some steps that you can take to gain clarity. Definitely hit me up in the comments or shoot me a DM if you need to connect. Chazz, how can we stay connected to you?
Absolutely. So Mr. _Caviar on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're interested in our nonprofit workshops, ages between 11 and 18, that's Positively Caviar on Instagram, and then Positive Caviar on Instagram. And then if you're interested in some of the webinars and workshops that I do for entrepreneurs and professionals, that's Supramentum. And I think you added that in the chat on Instagram as well. I also have my website, chazzscott.com, if you're interested in learning more about some of the work that I do to help encourage you to reach your highest potential.
Awesome. Have a great weekend, guys. I'll see you back here Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Have a great weekend. Thanks for spending time with us today. If we aren't yet connected, let's keep the conversation going on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, we grow when you subscribe, share, and invite others to check us out. We believe that others who consume these stories will be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Blaze Nation, go out today and